Rohit Zante, who is from the Zante family. He's a co-owner of Zante Cashew, and I was looking at the website. And interestingly, Zante's was set up all the way back in 1928 uh, when a delegation came from the US and then they tied up with them. So it's a business in the export of agriculture, largely organic cashew, in fact, and it's been around for nearly 100 years. A great deal of experience, and certainly somebody we need to learn a lot from. The second person I'd like to introduce is Shalini, Shalini Krishnan. She's part of Edible, she's a co-founder of Edible Archives, and is also an editor and I believe an author. And if I can just explain Edible Archives in a little bit, she and a partner take a sort of anthropological view of food and look at the extreme diversity that we used to have in terms of food cultivars and how they were eaten. So the entire system and how different kinds of foods would be used for different situations. If you fell ill, or if you had diabetes, or it was a different season or a different food, there's a whole lot of knowledge there which Edible Archives is trying to archive because we're slowly losing all these cultivars and this traditional knowledge. They also have a restaurant up in North Goa, which I'm unfortunately not yet got to go to, and not sure when we'll get there, but certainly on the list. Third is Arjun Gadre, who's managing director of Gadre Marine. And Gadre Marine is one of India's big success stories in the seafood space. They're the world's third largest producer of surimi, which is a particular kind of seafood product which then goes into things like fish balls, fish crab sticks. And Arjun was actually the driving force behind the entry into surimi and becoming this large global player in seafood. Interestingly, Gadre has factories in Gujarat, Maharashtra, and Karnataka, but not in Goa. And I'm sure later today we'll get an idea about why that's so and what can make it change. And last of all, I think we should be extremely honored to have Claude Alvarez. Claude Alvarez is one of the sort of grandfathers of organic agriculture in India, and he and a number of others set up the Organic Farmers Association of India way back in 1992, an organization by farmers, for farmers, run by farmers, and the whole objective was to shape policy and to get things like certifications and all of that, but from the perspective of farmers. Claude, in fact, and Norma have actually run a farm in Valpoi for 5 years, an organic farm. So that's where they started from. And Claude and OFI, just 3 years ago in 2017, organized a huge trade conference, the Organic World Congress, in New Delhi in November 2017. So we're extremely honored to have such a important personality from the field of organic farming as part of our panel. Now, it's going to be a slightly kind of a different kind of a panel. Let me just give you a few housekeeping rules first. First of all, other than the panelists and me, nobody else is going to speak. Just to keep it in control, everybody else will be on mute. But do stay alert. The objective of this session is to generate ideas. So we will be asking for a lot of ideas and interaction from you, the audience. Please use the question and answer box for submitting ideas. Ideas with the contributor name will be, ideas and the contributor name will be shared live on the screen as you go along. So keep your creative hats on, generate ideas for Goa. A little bit of background. A few days ago, the Goa's Economic Revival Committee suggested that two different things, that Goa becomes self-sufficient in food and this is of course a good objective, but if you look at history, Goa has always been food deficit from well before 1900. So sometime in the 1800s, Goa has been importing rice. And of course, with tourism, we're definitely not food self-sufficient today, but we weren't food self-sufficient 100 years ago also. The second thing that the ERC has set as a target is to increase agriculture as a share of GDP, double it in the next 3 years and triple it in 7 to 8 years. Now, tripling a bricks and mortar business like food is extremely difficult in 7 to 8 years. And keep in mind, this is a percentage to GDP. So GDP will hopefully double in the next 7 to 8 years. So this is effectively asking for agriculture to increase in value by about 6 times in the next 7 to 8 years. Also not a trivial proposition. So we need a variety of ideas. We need small incremental ideas, many of them, and we need a few big ones also, and we need the whole scale. I also want to set out that there is an inherent conflict when we think about food, because on the one side, politically, we want to have cheap food so that everybody has access to cheap food. When food prices go up, there are riots. On the other hand, producing food is really difficult. You don't get paid enough, you have weather uncertainties, market uncertainties. And the truth is, in India, it is hard work, it is manual labor, and it is lower caste work, which is why you can see all over Goa so many fallow fields and we're food dependent. So at this point, I'm going to ask for all of you to interact a little bit with us. We've got a poll going, which should pop up just now. There are two choices. What should we aim for? Should we aim for Goa to become food self-sufficient? Or should we aim to triple the share of agriculture in GDP from 7% to 22%? Yeah, there are these two simple choices, and the Q&A should have actually popped up. Oh, sorry. Okay, Q&A has come, but the poll, if we can have the poll up, Trella, that would be good. Okay, now while you guys are polling, I now want to go to the ideas, to the core of the session. As of yesterday, there were already 44 suggestions on the website on local food supply. And one of the things that I've asked all the panel members is to look at those ideas and identify one of the ideas that they think is underappreciated. Not too many people have responded to it, or not too many people have favorited it. And to pick that idea and explain to us within 1 minute why they think that idea is, should be looked at more closely. So if we can start now, I'll hand it off to Rohit to go first. And I guess if Trella is ready, Rohit, please, your time starts now.
Yeah, hi. First of all, I would like to thank Ideas for Goa for giving me the opportunity to be on this panel. Just to highlight the macro agricultural view, the data which I got from the Department of Agriculture, of the total crop which is there in Goa around the area under cultivation, cashew forms the biggest with more than 45,000 hectares. Paddy is 36 hectares, coconut which is 26,000 hectares, supari, sugar, other vegetables which is less than 5,000 hectares. Now, the idea which yesterday, the one which my expert domain is in cashew, and cashew is the only profitable mass scale main agricultural crop in Goa. Total cashew output in Goa is 20,000 tons, which gives farmers an average revenue of 250 crores annually. It is easily marketable, easy to maintain, and sustainable crop. Besides this, the yield of cashew in Goa is around 500 kgs per hectare, which is very low compared to other states, our neighboring states of Maharashtra and Karnataka, and internationally compared to Vietnam and even Africa. The main reason is farmers don't has a perception that cashew doesn't require much care, and they enter the cashew fields only during the month of harvesting, which is March, April, May. Recently, I had the opportunity to meet Honorable CM, and he mentioned to me that there was a pilot project done of intercrop in cashew plantation to grow turmeric. Now, turmeric has been successfully grown in fields of Sangam, which I have confirmed with the agriculture department. That is done very recently. Pepper has been done for cashew trees which are less than 7 years. So if intercrop of turmeric pepper can be introduced, farmers, that can provide an additional source of income for the farmers, as well as that will have the farmers visiting the cashew plantation, and some efforts if they go in taking care of the plantation. We have successful stories of successful farmers having yield of 1,000 or even 1,500 kgs per hectare, which will raise the income of the farmer substantially. Mute. Rahul.
Okay. Thanks, Rohit. You've taken a little bit more of time. Anyway, I'm going to ask Shalini next. Shalini, please go.
So, thank you for inviting me to be part of this panel. I had a look at the website, and there is an idea that surprisingly only has 1 or 2 upvotes that says cultivating barren fields is something that we should do to rejuvenate the local ecosystem. I think possibly the reason why it doesn't have so many upvotes is because while I think everybody agrees that we can use barren land that is lying around, there's not a lot of thought that goes into the long-term implications of how to do it, and also how to make policy around doing so. So I think that what we should think about a little bit is, it's not just enough to have land. Having land is the first step, but then you also need the know-how and the people to work on the land. So these are 2 separate things. One is the question of labor, which I'm not qualified to comment on at all. The second is the question of know-how, where I suggest that we can think about creating something along the lines of a committee. So you have somebody who knows about water harvesting, somebody who knows about soil cultivation. You have some farmers who have been doing traditional farming techniques. Maybe you have people from the agricultural department with newer ideas. You have people who have been working in organic farming for a long time. If you can bring everybody together to talk about these ideas, how to use everybody's knowledge effectively, if you can pool all of this knowledge, then there is a way to also think about how one can mentor the people who own this land, the land that is lying barren, whether it is a comunidad or whether it is an individual owner or however it is. This is something that I'm imagining as a long-term goal, that over time, one can mentor people, one can start with small amounts of land and then slowly expand, so that after some time, after say 5 years or a 7-year project, you have a plan in mind, then you can...
Okay, Shalini, can I just, you've already been like 2 minutes through.
Sorry.
It's a little unfair on everybody else. Rohit also. Arjun, you're on next, please. You're on mute. Arjun, you're on mute.
So thanks a lot for inviting me for this discussion. To the point that you asked about which of the ideas were like what struck me the most, I think Peter and Nino Singh's aquaponics in their house is an absolutely fantastic experiment / venture that they have started. I have personally visited them and seen this myself. I think my numbers might be wrong, but Peter and Nino are growing about more than 2,500 different trees bearing fruits and vegetables on their terrace. It is the classical aquaponics which has been converted into reality and functioning fantastic for the last 2 to 3 years. He started growing basa as the fish in water. Now he's gone to growing chanak. When I last spoke to him, he had close to 1,000 from 600 gram chanak swimming in his tanks while growing 2,500 trees on top. So given the urbanization, not only in Goa, but also in India, that is something we should really look at seriously and learn from him. He's a fantastic gentleman. I think he'll be more than happy to help anybody who approaches him. Thank you.
Thanks, Arjun. That was quite interesting. Claude, you're on next.
Yeah, I would support Arjun, in those 44 ideas. The most practical sort of food system, integrated food system is that worked out by Peter Singh and Nino. This thing is all mangoes falling on the roof of my office. So you may think that there are fireworks going on. But I think what they demonstrate, and I don't know why it's so undervalued. Maybe people are really much easier to work with ideas than to work with practical things. And Peter and Nino have worked at a very practical level. I mean, you can't look at that system that they have created, which, by the way, incorporates, as Arjun mentioned, incorporates fish. And one of the most important things about local food system in Goa is that if you don't have fish curry rice, you are really not talking about local systems. Maybe fish from the sea or fish from rivers or from tanks or from aquaculture, whatever it is. But these any solution for Goa for improving what you call GDP 3 times or whatever it is has to concentrate on these 3 elements: fish, curry, and rice. So fish, of course, is the entire marine system. And how do you? We have been only taking fish from the sea. We don't grow it ourselves really in any significant way. But Peter is started, and many people can learn from him. Coconut, we have a lot of coconut, but we don't have any coconut pluckers now, so that's a big problem. And rice is still, grown quite well in Goa. I mean, we are dependent on outside rice. But these are the 3 elements of our local food system which we have to concentrate on. And of course, cashews is an elementary part of it. So I'm saying any sort of discussion about this will have to work within these parameters, not in line with broccoli and some of the things we supply to hotels and so on. But this is local food for local people and created locally over many centuries. How do you enhance how do you bring it back? Because COVID is an interval time for us to look at what we have done. We have devastated most of it. How do you restore it?
Okay. Okay, I'm conscious that we've run already 10 minutes over time. So I did ask you all for 4 big ideas, but I'm really scared that you all will go on forever. So I will actually this time definitely cut you all short at a minute. If or if you all have already run your idea through, then if you skip, that would be also good. But Rohit, I guess you're on next. You're on first.
So, so one of the farming activities which happen in Goa is sugarcane, and currently we have around 1,000 hectares producing around 30,000 tons a year, which has come down from 60,000. We are currently they are selling it to the sugar factory, which is not operational, and they have to sell the produce to Karnataka. There are a lot of issues there. One way the agriculture and the whole sugar farming can be self-sustainable if investment can be made into making sugarcane juice. So that currently, if I want to buy sugarcane juice, we buy it from the roadside, which is unhygienic. If someone can invest in food processing and making sugarcane juice, which is available fresh during the month of November, December, January, February during the harvesting time, and then can be packed into Tetra Pak and supplied throughout the year, it is much more viable as a business than making sugar.
Okay.
Can I continue?
Thanks. Shalini, your big idea. You're on mute.
My idea is to focus on local ingredients. Goa has a lot of ingredients, many of which never make it beyond very, very immediate local consumption. During this lockdown, we found that in a relatively small area of land, we were able to produce enough food to feed 10 people for 20 days. just using a lot of things that we did not plant ourselves, wild vegetables, wild greens, and this also extends to fish. We can look at river fish, we can look at grains of different kinds, millets, indigenous rices. All of these things can be used, and the same land that is under cultivation can be used, can give a higher yield than having to sort of start industrial agricultural on a large scale.
Your time's up. Thanks. Arjun?
Yeah, I mean, Rahul, I want to request for 3 minutes because I've prepared a small presentation. I'll finish in 3 minutes. So if you can allow me.
Okay, let's go with that.
Okay. So, as I hope you can all see this.
Yeah.
Currently, aquaculture in Goa is, as per the website, it says 75, but the active farms are only 37 hectares. Okay. My proposal or my big idea is to allow Khazan land to be used for aquaculture. Now, Khazan land has been reclaimed from the banks of the river. They were originally marshlands converted into paddy fields for cultivation by using bunds. Fundamentally, aquaculture is a type of farming. It's agriculture. Construction of bunds have already altered the ecosystem from when they were. Maybe it was hundreds of years back, but it is an altered ecosystem. It's not what nature provided. And change of use of Khazan land from paddy farming to shrimp farming with due care will ensure no further environmental challenges. And it's been done elsewhere. Now, the potential for aquaculture in Goa, as per the records, Khazan land is about 18,500 hectares. Water under area under water is about 6,500 hectares. Available for paddy right now is 12,500 hectares. If 25% of that is allocated to shrimp farming, you're talking about 3,125 hectares. And at a minimum average of 11.5 tons of per hectare per year, with lowest estimates and with efficient farmers going as much as 25 metric tons per hectare, your potential in a year is to produce 34,000 tons at a minimum and 78,000 tons at a maximum, with a total revenue at a minimum of 350 kgs a kilo of 1,200 crores to 2,700 crores. And these are all numbers you can check elsewhere from the farms. There are a few farms operating. The prices and the things are, I operate a farm myself, so I know these numbers accurately. Now, just to compare with what Goa has done as compared to all other coastal...
Hey, Rohit, can I sorry, Arjun, can I just interrupt? I mean, we've got the idea. I mean, we can evaluate the idea later, but the basic idea is
another 4 slides. Just another 4 slides. It's almost done. I'm just giving you what others have done.
No, I'd really appreciate it if we can move on, because, you know, it's,
and
I mean, it's clearly an opportunity, but, you know, we are short on time.
I agree with you. I just 3 minutes. That was all I wanted. This is just another image of exactly how a Khazan land can be used for aquaculture. This has been done, and this is nothing new. And the second idea was to use backwaters for cage culture. And you have ICAR, which is in Goa, old Goa, have all the technology. You can grow basa and all these other fishes in there. And these are just numbers where even a small individual can invest and earn about 3.5–4 lakh rupees a year. We have 250 kilometers of backwaters where you can use these resources.
Arjun, please, can we?
Yeah, we're done. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks. Claude, you're on next.
Yeah, my proposal is to have a specific brand of organic food, which is called Goa Organic. Now, what would be the quality of that? You see, Goa has got the tradition of using chemicals for farming, but not pesticides. In most of my experience over the last 40 years of looking at farms in Goa, that's the general criterion. People just don't have a habit of using pesticides. Now, organic has 2 qualities. One is in growing, you don't use chemicals for fertilizers and then for plant protection. In Goa, we are halfway, but most important thing for public health, for the tourism industry, for a lot of other people, is to get food that is safe. Means food that may be grown chemically, but still does not use pesticides. And therefore, it's good enough if we have at least an intermediate organic, which assures everybody that whatever we are serving in Goa, part of the local food production system, really does not contain any pesticides. If you have done that, you have won more than half the battle. So that's what I would like to suggest as an innovative idea for Goa. Instead of going fully organic, though we are in many ways, I was discussing with Sanjay before you all came in, that much of cashew cultivation is already, default organic. But in the case of many other things also, we could have a specific Goa brand of organic, which is zero pesticides.
Thanks, Claude. That was very useful. Now we've got, I think, 7 ideas in total. We had the opportunities with cashew. We had cultivating barren land, aquaponics, and then on the new ideas, developing sugarcane juice, developing local ingredient-based food, Khazan land for aquaculture, and semi-organic Goa organic food, which is semi-organic. It's pesticide-free, but not not necessarily fertilizer-free. Okay. Do we have the results of the poll? Trella? I guess Trella. Okay, we just give us a few seconds. What I thought that we could do as a group right now is to take a particular system, and I'm just thinking about maybe if we look at the local food ecosystem and say that, what are the things that we have in Goa, which is, the results have come. The results are 77% chose food self-sufficiency, 31% chose triple the share of agriculture, and 2% are unknown. I'm not sure the 2% chose something between, no, we're at 108%, sorry. 77 plus 31 is 108%. Okay, we've got 108% of both, 77 for food self-sufficiency, 31 for tripling the share. Zoom is clearly not bug-free yet. So let's look at food self-sufficiency now for another 15-20 minutes, and let's look at all the other aspects of food self-sufficiency that we may not have thought about. So on one side, we may have things like where does the food come from, for instance, cashew, sugarcane, and all of that. But at the other side also, we need to think about where is the market, who's going to buy it, and do they have the purchasing power? And at a different level, what else do we need to do in the ecosystem? Do we need universities? Do we need different policies? Do we need fiscal support? Or I don't know what else. But I want to now throw it open to the panelists, and I want the audience to use the Q&A box to send in your own ideas as to how Goa can become self-sufficient, but don't look just at the immediate thing, look at the broader entire landscape of what all will it take to make us self-sufficient.
Rahul, this is the Ideas for Goa team. I just wanted to let you know that the attendees are seeing the poll results on the screens. So if you want me to can you see the poll results, please?
I can see the poll results as 77-31.
Yes.
Yeah, you can see them. You can see them.
Yeah, that's the problem is it's 108%, which is, but anyway, leave that. We know that food self-sufficiency is 2:1 approximately. So, so let's go on. Let's start. I leave the floor open now to all of you to come up with ideas. Again, try to be short, please. If you can be in like 5-6 words, like agriculture university. Let me start it off with agriculture university for Goa.
And Rahul, again, this is the IFG team. You would want us to share the document on screen right now, or do you want us
Yes,
to?
that would be good.
Okay, I'm sharing it right now.
Thanks. Come on, all of you now have a chance to, all the panelists, Shalini, Claude, Rohit, Arjun. What else do we need to become self-sufficient?
I just wanted to make a point. I mean, I've not really understood the notion of self-sufficient, because we are part of a large country which grows everything that we need. And every area is better at growing a particular product. So trying to grow everything at a localized area and not relying on other areas of the country to bring in food and maximizing what we are good at. For like Mr. Zante said, that if Goa is great at growing cashew, should we compromise that and try and plant a variety of different
Okay. I get that, Rohit. I think let's go with the thing that the state has decided, or the ERC has said that we want to be self-sufficient, because when we had the COVID crisis, there was actually a lack of food. And if I remember right, the same situation came up last year when we had those crazy floods in August. So my sense is food self-sufficiency as a goal is actually, I mean, as that goal, is a separate deal, which your idea of, we can export cash and we can export fish and import the food we need. So that is an economic angle, but the food self-sufficiency is a specific question about can actually become food self-sufficient, I guess. So let's not question the goal. Let's try and see how we can build ideas on achieving the goal.
I think if you're looking at here is being food self-sufficient. So we can categorize in essential commodities. I think that is what we are looking at. So I think the basic exercise has to be done from the macro point of view. So you have to find out what is the, for 50 to feed 15 lakh Goan population, 2 meals a day plus 1 breakfast. You have to find out how much grains are required, how many pulses are required, and how many vegetables are required, and how much fish is required. I'll add fish to this because fish is an integral part of our diet.
Yeah,
Currently,
absolutely.
I was talking to one. Currently, I was talking to one expert.
Just on that, Rohit, if I can just sort of add on to that, it struck me while actually going through the ideas for Goa website that it could have actually benefited a lot from a couple of things. One is to actually have some background information on each of these areas, exactly like this, statistics on what is being produced, what is being consumed, where the gap is, what is the income, what is the amount of area available. And I actually thought that maybe we could do a separate exercise, or if anybody wants to make suggestions for ideas for Goa on how they could improve their website itself. So if you can, if you have any other, a second idea could be giving numbers to ideas on the site, because if you have 44 ideas, there is no way to tag it uniquely. So maybe if you have any other ideas, you can hashtag it as hash I4G, ideas for Goa. But yes, we do need a lot of this information, without which it's difficult to have a meaningful conversation.
Just to conclude on my thing, that currently I was talking to one of the experts who is dealing in food product. His estimate is currently Goa is only providing 5% of the essential commodities which is required for daily consumption. And I would like
5%.
to 5% is what it is. 5% is what it is. I agree to what Arjun had said. We have to, rather than concentrating on being self-sufficient, our image, that can be our long-term goals, and our goals has to be reduce the dependence on outside state and increase that 5% figure to 10% to 15% in the next few years. But again, we have to also concentrate on increasing the farmers' income, which is more important, and concentrating and consolidating on our core competencies. And I like to, exactly agree on what Arjun had to say before.
No, I agree with that. See, I mean, there is that entire conflict between farmers' income being high enough so that they even produce the food that can make us self-sufficient versus food being cheap enough. So it's a hard dilemma. But if the state believes that we need to be self-sufficient, then like, is cold storage the solution? Should we create cold storage for 6 months of food?
I have some.
So let's come up with ideas. Let's not say the problem is not correct. Let's come up with, I mean, there is a problem clearly that they're trying to solve. They haven't put it number one in the ERC because they haven't thought about it.
In my opinion, what we faced in the first week of the lockdown.
Hey, Arjun, let's concentrate on ideas, not on reasons we should. Yeah.
No, correct. You gave the background of why the government is thinking of self-sufficiency. The problem was more with logistics than actually farm produce.
Yeah, but the idea is there will be times when logistics will fail, right? The same thing with the water.
That's exactly what in the 21st century we should not be expecting to happen. No other country, no other area has to face with these kind of things.
But again, guys, can I please ask you, I mean, it's okay to be on mute, but let's generate the ideas. Even if you have to get from 5 to 30%, it's not going to happen by us saying that, we can't get to 100%.
One of the suggestions, one positive.
And also, can I just hang on? Can we ask also for views from Claude and Shalini so that we just spread the discussion?
Right. No, I was actually going to say that since Goa is in this very lucky position where between the weather and the kind of soil and everything, a lot of things grow here. And there is a certain way in which there are traditional agricultural things, the list that Rohit gave, like coconut, cashew, rice, etc. But the soil of Goa is such that you can grow a lot of other things as well, including all kinds of vegetables and all kinds of grains that grow in other parts of the country. So I think that one major thing that is absolutely needed is to have greater information for people who are interested in farming or who are subsisting by farming on what all they can grow. And whether that means that you have people coming from other parts of the country and saying that, where we live, we grow these 8 types of, say, gourds, like different kinds of cucumbers and lauki and tori, and we use all parts of the plant. So, like, this is something that may not be very common knowledge here in Goa, that you think that, okay, I'm growing a pumpkin, I'm getting 5 pumpkins out of it, but you're also getting so many kilos of pumpkin leaves and pumpkin flowers that can be used as well. So I think that kind of knowledge dissemination on a very basic level is needed.
Okay, no, that's interesting, because I just heard that so moringa, we have the drumstick, but the drumstick leaves are actually cooked in other parts of the world and people really enjoy that.
The leaves, the flowers, the roots, all of the moringa plant can be used.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I'm just using that as an example to expand on yours. Claude, did you have any thoughts?
No, I still think that we should, if you're thinking about anything in terms of food, you have to build on the strengths that we have. If you take cashew, for example, we can really improve cashew production. We are the only people, for example, as is one of these comments, who also use cashew juice. If you go to Kerala and Karnataka, they don't use cashew juice. We use cashew juice. So there are, we use a lot of already inbuilt organic stuff, like our fish, which comes from the ocean, is largely organic. Nobody is feeding it. It may be having some other stuff that comes in, but it's except if you're talking about aquaculture, prawn farming, where they use a lot of antibiotics. But that's something it's bad in any case, and should not really be permitted. So I'm saying you build on the strengths. Your coconut trees, which are part of your ambience, your paddy fields, which are part of your ambience, your cashew, the fish, and see how within this you are able to build up a very strong a model of self-sufficiency, because if you, for example, today, if you can't buy even banglas and you can only look at fish in somebody's basket and not on your plate, your self-sufficiency, which was there even 15 years ago, is already disappeared. In rice, you can still say it's there. In coconut, it's there. But in fish, it's gone. So how do we use new models to get that fish back? Because if you work within these 3 or 4 elements of the protein which comes in the fish and the vegetables and so on, then a lot of local people would get interested in this model. But if you come out with a model which is completely exotic to the people here, they have no confidence in it. Then it'll be very difficult to get them to get their cooperation to work with these local food products that we have been using.
But what is the idea specifically? I mean, you've defined the problem, but what do we do with that? So you said that we should build on our strengths.
Whatever practical things, like when Rohit mentioned about sugarcane juice, we talk about all these scientists and so on, but we just don't have people who are capable of seeing that we can market the juice without it fermenting within a certain period of time. The same thing is, if you go to any part of the world, you get coconut, which is shaved in a very attractive way and then served instead of just damn Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola and so on, and people really love it. So you can, in every one of these things, make a good innovation and an improvement or something that's available, bring it here, which people can use, and make that as part of your building block.
So if I can just go down that thing a little bit, why do you think people in Goa are not doing these innovations? Because people in Goa are traveling all over the world, and of course the internet is everywhere. I mean, yes, these are obvious things, but they're not obviously happening. Is it lack of vision, or is it, what is it?
I can't put my finger on it, but Kokum is a very good example. Kokum now, if you go to any of the markets, I went yesterday to look again because I finished a bottle of Kokum, and the markets are empty of Kokum because this is the season where everybody drinks Kokum, Kokum juice, and you have to have it on your table, in a bowl, and you keep on drinking it, throughout the day. This is our custom in our house with a little bit of salt sprinkled in. But somebody had that innovation and brought it out and made it available, and now everybody drinks. Whoever wants it can get it. You can get it in a raw form or in bottle form or whatever. So we need concept, we need products which are uniquely Goan, which are uniquely local. See where they have been battered, see how we can protect those and restore those, like for example fish, and look at other products like sugarcane and many others which can be made into something which will bring a very good income to people who are familiar with those things. It's not something new, but it's something which they are familiar and which they can use and which they can produce.
No, but what's missing? I mean, open it up not just to you, Claude, not just to you, Claude, but to others also. What is missing? Why is this not happening?
Can I say something?
Sure.
No, like I said, and like how Claude also was saying about growing the traditional fish. I think I showed it in my presentation that the fish which is most popular in Goa, which is the chonak, is very easily grown in cage cultures across the world. I mean, I would just like to tell you, chonak is the same as bekti, is the same as jitada, is the same as baramundi, is the same fish right from India right to Australia. Everybody else in Southeast Asia grows it by the tons. And we, like Claude has rightly said, we have exploited the wild caught fishery. So there is no sense in trying to think that why the sea is not giving us more until we reduce the number of fishing boats by half. We have to look at the land-based aquaculture. And I would like to just again say that, Claude, you rightly said that there used to be antibiotic used, but for the last maybe a decade, Indian aquaculture is the best performing aquaculture in the world. India supplies the highest amount of shrimps to the world, and that will give you protein self-sufficiency, increase local people's income, and pull them out of poverty far better than any other agriculture output today. Tomorrow might be a different thing. Goa has been given such beautiful resources by nature. if we responsibly use them, and nobody is saying to convert 100% of the land into aquaculture. Even if a quarter of it is used, it still brings a whole lot of population out of poverty. So, unfortunately,
okay. Let's move on to new ideas, guys. Let's not just stick on the same ideas.
no, I am only talking about my idea. I can't talk about somebody else's idea.
No, but you can, if you
I am only
have
saying
other suggestions, fair enough.
No, just one last point. ICAR has all the technology available to be implemented by local people just by conducting a month's training. So it is eventually down to the people's will to kind of first get exposed to this technology and this opportunity, and then go ahead and learn the techniques. I finished. I will not say anymore.
So let me just go to a few of the ideas that have come up. I see on the Q&A. Like there's the last idea that I see is, can we create an effective and responsible specialized authority to prevent diversion of agricultural land to non-agriculture? I mean, this is actually a question that we need to think about. If we do want to increase food production generally, whether it is for self-sufficiency or for GDP, then do we want to protect agricultural land from diversion? And also the other industry which intersects a lot with agriculture is mining, between the fields and the rivers getting silted and the irrigation water sort of being lost. To what extent does this become important? This is a question that, of course, we can't answer at this discussion. There are some other ideas which are coming through. Community growing of vegetables in every complex. So this is not a GDP driven kind of a thing. It's people growing, sort of urban farming kind of an idea. Let's see. Central food repositories at panchayat or ward level. Food that goes to waste, gets circulated around to people who need food, sort of like a food bank. There's another one, community run urban food forests. Then, of course, the khazans are in fact something like the aquaponics, if you think about it. It's a mixed food and fish kind of a thing. There's somebody saying that fish and shrimp can be grown along with the paddy crop. That, of course, is done in Bengal also. I thought it was done here in Goa in the khazan.
Alternatively, not on the same time.
Okay.
Simultaneously.
Jackfruit grows in abundance. A cottage industry for products from jackfruit. Okay. Anything else on this in terms of policy or in terms of, not specific to your industry, on the, let's say on the market side? If you want to go down the Goa organics kind of a thing or create a Goa brand, what else would be required for that? Any thoughts? Or Rohit, with your export experience of Goa cashew, is there anything else that the system needs to do?
Goa cashew brand is a success story from which all of us can try to learn from it. Looking at it, it started. I think three things are required for creating any brand like how Goa cashew has been able to create. One is a good product. One is visibility of the product, and third is it's very important not to overprice the product. So in Goa, if you look at the history, when tourism started in the 60s and the 60s, 70s, early 70s, cashew shops were already existing in Panjim, in markets of Mapsa, in Margao, and it took 50 or 40 long years till early 2000s, where consistently a good quality product at a reasonable price was being provided, given to the tourists who were traveling from all over India to Goa. And it took that long for this brand to be created and recognized today, not only in Goa, but also in foreign countries. So creating a
So-
brand requires time. You have to put in, the corporates have to put in. So it was Cashew brand was not created by farmers. It was created by the processors and the shopkeepers in Goa, right? Because they were honest with the customers, giving them Goan quality product, Goan processed product at a reasonable price. That's how the brand was created over the years of 40 years. So availability of the product is also equally important. So today we have, Goan Alsane Pulse, which is available only in Goa. You go anywhere in Goa, you go to restaurants, you go to marriages, Alsane you have, which is a Goan product, which is, I think, a product which is a success for the farmers also, because today a wholesale price for Alsane is 150 rupees a kg, and it is not easily available, retailed at 200 rupees a kg. So something like a Alsane or a Goan paddy, which has nutritional value, if we start, making it visible to the customers, tourists who come to Goa, start marketing it outside, you'll get the advantage, you get the leverage of it, you'll get advantages of sales, price in the years to come. But availability, visibility to the tourists is equally important.
I need to stop you. We're running out of time actually just now. I'm sorry about that. But there's been a huge number of actually ideas that I can see. It's like running into pages. I think we've got 37. I mean, it's a mix of questions and ideas, but there are many questions. I mean, both of them are there. So, and our 4 panelists have contributed to another 7 ideas also. So I think overall, a pretty successful conversation, but I think it also shows that this is only a first step. There are many other things that we have to think this through in a lot more detail. Already some, conflicts and questions have come up. Do we go self-sufficiency? Do we do GDP? How do we bridge the two? Do we need to do either? But we aren't going to solve any of these problems on one conversation. So, in any case, I want to thank all the panelists for being very supportive with a somewhat new format in terms of what we were doing. And I know Rohit and Arjun especially were sort of thrown off a little bit, and I apologize for that. We're trying things, and we're just trying to see if we can get more ideas. The entire document, all the questions that have come, and a little bit of a summary will be sent to all the attendees. And if there are things that based on this you want to develop further, please put your ideas back onto Ideas for Goa. You already know how to get there. We've got a couple more seminars coming on tomorrow, webinars coming on tomorrow and day after. Tourism and hospitality, again, is tomorrow at 4 p.m. Learning and knowledge is day after, again at 4 p.m. Sign up on Ideas for Goa and keep the spirit going. We really need to change trajectories with this kind of between the rain last year, then the pipe broke down, now the COVID virus, and of course longer term we're going to have climate change and sea level rise. So we have to really rethink things, and I'm glad to see so much engagement from all of you. Thanks once again to the panelists, all 4 of you, Rohit, Arjun, Shalini, Claude, and thanks very much to the Ideas for Goa team for allowing us to have this opportunity to interact with all of you. Thanks, and I guess I'll see, hopefully most of you will be online tomorrow for the next session. Thank you.
Bye. Bye-bye.